Well, hello there and welcome to Travels with Geordie. If this is your first visit, my name is Peter Knowles and I live on this classic wooden motor cruiser here in rainy Victoria, British Columbia, along with the loving memory of my pup Geordie. All the while fixing it up for some pretty ambitious cruising someday. If that's something you might find interesting, please consider sticking around and subscribing. You know I'd love to have you. Well, this week has been a bit of a tear. Actually, by the time you watch this, I'll be in Halifax, Nova Scotia, visiting my daughters, and I'm really excited about that, and I'm sure there'll be a clip, if not possibly a live stream from Halifax, or possibly down in Lunenburg where the Blue Nose is. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. This week was mostly catching up on a bunch of odds and ends. I had to do some work on the truck, getting the dinghy out of the water, etc. But I hope you enjoy it. Let's jump back. And one notice about the beer of the week this week. There will be no beer of the week shot during the episode. What I'm going to do is shoot a beer of the week live, or not live, but on my phone in Nova Scotia, and I'll link to it in the end of this video, so that instead of the beer of the week being the last 3 minutes of this episode, it'll actually be its own tiny episode that is linked with an end screen. Anyway, when we get there, I'll show you. Okay then, so we've got a big blow coming through. In fact, we've had quite a few already this year. Now, happily, here in the inner harbor, we are much more protected than we were when we were out in the outer harbor there, but still, I worry about the canopies. And yes, they've been through some pretty big blows already, but I'd rather not lose them than have to buy yet another drop cloth. So what I've done, I've procured some nice 3/4 by 1.5 inch Douglas fir, and the idea is I'm going to abandon, and some of you will be thrilled about this, the ornate little ends on here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to plumb cut all the bows right here at this point, and then wrap the cloth itself around the bottom of, then I'm going to apply that that 3/4 by 1.5 Douglas fir onto the end like a fascia, and then I will wrap the cloth around it tight and screw it with washers, as I do everywhere else in many locations along the bottom, and that will vastly improve its strength in windy conditions, because this is the weak link, having these edges flapping away like that. Problem is, the wind is about to come on, and I'm not sure I have enough time to get this done before the weather really turns on me, but might take a risk. Yep, waited a bit too long for that this year. That's going to take some work. Well, that'll have to do. Anyway, speaking of dinghies, the subject of dinghy styles comes up about as often as toilet systems amongst cruisers. I prefer a hard shell dinghy, and I particularly like a traditional looking, this one is a lapstrake, over a inflatable, a rib, which it just doesn't seem to suit classic wooden boat to me. Although I realize the convenience of being able to go fast, and the flexibility in terms of you know, beaching it and things like that. It's a little hard on this poor thing to beach it on rocks. Anyway, I'd be curious to know what people seem to think is ideal for a classic cruising motor vessel. I realize I would love to have this boat in wood if I could find one, and maybe someday I will, but in the meantime, this is a nice compromise. It's a sailing dinghy. It's actually a Minto, quite common here in the Pacific Northwest. Both Lady of Zephyr and I have the same dinghy, and we really like them. The trick is, where is it going to go? Another thing that's a problem with a classic motor yacht. Flip up on the transom just doesn't seem right. Because I have a bridge deck area, I can't really put it up there, although I might be able to. In winter, I put it up on top of the wheelhouse, but of course that is difficult to get it up and down, so it's not suitable for cruising. I tend to just tow it when cruising. But again, I'd be curious to know how you deal with your dinghy. Speaking of a canopy, I mentioned yesterday I was going to modify the structure on here by cutting these off and putting this Douglas fir on the end, but the wind came up really fast, and the best I could do was slap them on top and add some more screws in, and it survived a really significant blow here last night. So it may stay like that for the winter. If it can survive that, it can survive anything. Got my lights in. Now, a project that is well overdue is a little maintenance on the poor Land Rover. Now, those of you who've been following along for a long time might go way back to the Land Rover years of Riverport Rovers, 88 in a day, etc. like that. Well, this truck has been my faithful transportation for over a decade now, and I haven't really given it much maintenance in that time. So today, new turn signals. And well, here they are in all their glory. These are ostensibly sealed LED reproduction Land Rover turn signal lights. Now, for those of you who are Land Rover enthusiasts, you'll be aware that these are actually Defender style, or possibly late Series 3 as well. But anyway, they're certainly not appropriate for my 1959 truck. But I've been using at least lights that look like this for the entire time I've owned the truck, and I'm quite content. So here's the problem. Let's look at the lights we have available. We have 1, 2 white ones. We have 1, 2 yellow ones, and then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, sorry, 2 more yellow ones and 2 red ones. Now, when I do Land Rover lights, basically you get the white and the turn signal at the front. White being they just go on with the riding lights. It's a European thing, or I'm not sure I'm even doing it right, but I wire those with the headlights. With the riding lights, and these are the turn signals. And in the back, they're stacked on top of each other in this case, and I'm going to set them up dual filament. These are not dual filament. These are only one, so they're a turn signal. These are twin filament, so you can see there are 2 filaments in there, a ground and 2 wires. So normally I like to do this with 4 reds in the back of the truck, so all 4 glow as riding lights, and then the upper 2 blink as turn signals, and the lower 2 go on as brake lights. So I'm going to wire these up largely like that. These will be turn signals as they are in the front, fine. These will glow as riding lights and brighten for brake lights. Okay, too much information. Here's the problem. They all come with these probably Defender style plugs. I'm not familiar with them, and I don't care much for them. The main problem is that the leads are way too short. Now in the back, the lights go right on to the back of the truck, and right inside there's a little compartment where all the wiring happens. So these pigtails will be long enough. I'll simply cut them off and connect them up to the wiring inside the truck. Fine, leave those for now. Up front, same wires, but the way Land Rovers have the turn signals in the front, they're inside the open fender. Let me show you. Now in terms of the connections, the rear one's really quite simple. On a pickup truck, this particular truck has, I believe these are the ex-MOD or the military style enclosures for the wiring, which makes it very easy to deal with that. Now up front, not necessarily so tidy. The problem is turn signals are in the fender, which is all very well, that's sort of normal, but of course the fender is exposed to all kinds of mud and junk that's flying around up in under here, and that, besides being dirt and salt and mud, is sometimes vegetation. In the years when I was off-roading this truck, that would be big clods of muddy grass and stuff, and would just hang on those wires. And as you can see, this particular set are just hanging loose. Not good. So you can see a pigtail of this length would require me to make the connection up inside where all that mud and grime and possible vegetation and junk is. So I'm going to extend these wires by cutting them and extending them with marine cable. Yes, proper tin marined wire. Now this is overkill for these tiny little LEDs, but I'm quite content to do that. And that will be extended inside the engine compartment where I have my terminal connections for all these lights. So the project is super simple. Cut the wires off, solder them together, shrink them all together. Let's just get it done. One nice thing about these lights is that for all their tiny little filament wires, I don't know if you can see that this is actually tinned wire, which is very nice. Makes me happy. Very boat-like. I've been soldering since I was just a little kid because my father was in electronics at McGill University in Montreal, and these old welders have been part of my life basically since I was old enough to walk. But of course they need constant management, keeping the electrodes heating element nice and tight. Frankly, I'm not even sure what the latest is in soldering gun technology, but I've had this one for about 40 years and it still works as long as I keep tabs of it. Oh, look at it getting good and hot there. Okay then, so a couple of suitable lengths of shrink tube. Okay, so that old tip was getting pretty scary, so I cut it down and made up a new tip, including filing the end of it a little bit clean, because in my understanding, and you electronic people can correct me, to get it really hot at the tip, it needs to be the smallest diameter at that point, so that's where the highest resistance is. Anyway, let's see if this works well for me now. There we go. Nice flow. That's a nice connection. And again, as with all soldering, heat the object and let the object melt the solder rather than the gun or torch or whatever it is you're making heat with. So I just support the connection with the gun with the tip and then let it melt the solder right onto it. Nice. And then if I pinch this big one between them, it'll bond together and make two individually heat shrunk and glued up connections there. Yeah, very nice. That's bulletproof. And these connectors can go as well because they will connect to anything I have. And we can strip all these. Alright, so they're all ready to go on the truck, along with the front ones that have got pigtails on them. Okay. Nice. Now, the original Land Rover turn signals are held on with 3 screws. And over the 62 years that this truck has existed, I don't know how many sets of turn signals it's had on it, but at least 4 that I even know of. And I've always used the same holes, and I felt pretty good about that. There's a little damage here, but that's not the end of the world. The new style LED ones are all one fixed unit, so there's no place to put the 3 screws from the inside. The 2 screws that hold the lens on are actually the screws that go right through and hold the whole unit onto the car, which means I have to drill 2 new holes in this beautiful aluminum fender wing. How do I feel about that? I'm okay with that. Robertson screws on a car. I got over that decades ago. Okay, so I thought it might be better to show the reveal at night. Hey, 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 those are right. I love it. I think we can call that a success. Well, folks, this is a bit much. I just happened to be walking the path, and yes, it is MV Coho's first trip back to Victoria post, well, not post, but since the beginning of the pandemic. And as you can see, she's getting quite a welcome. Was interesting. It's more of a phenomenon than a boat, actually. It's been plying the route from Victoria to Port Angeles since 1959. Actually, I may stand corrected. It was built in 1959. I don't know how long it's been doing that route, but it's been doing this route from downtown Victoria Harbor to Port Angeles, Washington State for a long time, steadily, reliably, and people just love the boat. It's a classic, and it looks beautiful coming into the harbor. It looks beautiful when it's here, and it's a nice and convenient way to get across to see our friends in the US and have them come and join us here. So, welcome back, Coho. We missed you. Okay then, for those of you who want to stick around for the beer of the week, it's just up over my left shoulder here. Click on that, and it's as if it's all in one. For those of you who don't watch the beer of the week, you're done. Move on.